Hello, everybody, and welcome to Press A Repeatedly. I'm your host, Christopher Gold.
And I'm the co-host this week, Alaina Tomasello.
Wait a minute, you're not Justin.
I could be.
You can? Okay, that's really good to know. I'm going to need you to wear this giant afro wig. I need you to wear these giant shoes that make you at least 2 feet taller.
Jeez, I didn't realize that Justin was entering in the circus anytime soon. These are a little bit large on me.
Well, no, they're just to help me. They're just to help you look more like Justin this week. I have this kit here, just in case of emergencies, where I need someone to look like Justin.
Oh, okay, I see.
Now, if I don't ordinarily get to ask this, but could you put these chains on top of yourself too?
I don't know that Justin wears these.
Not ordinarily, but just please do this for me.
I think we should keep this show PG-13. I'm sorry, I can't honor that request for you.
We'll talk after the recording. But yeah, Alaina, as you all can surmise, is on the show this week. Justin is off. He was playing No Man's Sky, and he kind of got sucked off into he got sucked into a battle where he has to fight space pirates, so he is unable to join us this week. So, Alaina was gracious enough to agree to fill in his spot this week. So thank you, Alaina.
It's a pleasure to be here. Love you, Justin.
Yeah, whatever. So, Alaina, now that you're on the show, why don't you tell us why exactly we decided to bring you on the show?
Well, this week our topic is a little bit unique. We're going to be talking about a new gaming magazine, and it's called A Profound Waste of Time.
Very similar to this podcast.
Okay, that's a little true. No, I love PAR podcast. I just purchased the magazine not too long ago, so we thought it would be cool to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a very new magazine. It only just debuted last month. Honestly, I hadn't really heard too much about it, but Alaina was over and she was telling me about the magazine. She picked up the first issue of it, and honestly, it sounded so cool and so impressive that, yeah, I wanted to go into more detail and shed some light on it because it honestly sounds really, really cool. Pretty unique, especially in today's marketplace. So we're gonna kind of just describe it a little bit, describe some of its contents, and see what the future holds for A Profound Waste of Time.
Yes, sirree. Sounds like a plan.
Now, in the meantime, Alaina, it's been a while since you've been on the show, so I'm gonna get things kicked off right over to you. What are you playing?
What am I playing? So, it's kind of funny that Nick came out with a fake PIR schedule. You should really read his article on the website. It turned out awesome. It was all about sort of scheduling yourself like a streamer. That way you could play all the games you want to play and beat. And anyway, on this fake schedule, he had that I was playing Animal Crossing, and lo and behold, I'm playing Animal Crossing. But not just any Animal Crossing. I've gone back to Animal Crossing for the GameCube for the very first time.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, the original GameCube game is an absolute classic. I can't count how many hours I sunk into that game. What inspired you to go back to the original?
Well, I've always had a desire to play it. As you say, it's kind of a classic among classics. And my first Animal Crossing game was Wild World, so I never really had a chance to experience it. And recently, we dug out the GameCube, and I really thought, you know what, this is an opportunity to purchase Animal Crossing for the GameCube and play it, since I really wanted an Animal Crossing game and I wanted a new Animal Crossing experience, but as you know, we're not really getting Animal Crossing for Switch anytime soon, and I've exhausted New Leaf and Wild World and all my other Animal Crossing, so felt like it was the right time.
You don't have to give up hope just yet. There might still be an announcement at some point within the next year or 5.
Yeah, year or 5, huh? Yeah, I mean, I haven't given up on Animal Crossing for Switch, but it just seems like Nintendo's being very guarded about it if it does exist, and I don't know. Right now, I think they're very satisfied with Pocket Camp and how that's doing as a mobile app, and I don't really see it in their priority list, but who knows? I mean, I'm always hoping for a new Animal Crossing game in my future. But anyway, I think the GameCube game is going really well so far, but it's a little different than how I imagined.
How so?
Well, for one, I feel like the villagers are a little bit more mean.
Mean? Like, in what way? I never really noticed that they were any meaner or kinder in later versions.
Well, what's funny is I think I got really accustomed to New Leaf. And as you know, some things about Animal Crossing that were quirky were kind of downplayed in New Leaf a little bit. I mean, there's still plenty of charm and, you know, it still has that great Animal Crossing feeling. But some of the older things from the games, like Rossetti was optional. Tom Nook was a little bit more settled in his ways. He's a little bit, you know, less of a, what would you put, like, money mongrel? How do you pronounce that?
I believe the term is mob boss, a criminal.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I was going. So anyway, GameCube Animal Crossing opens up, and, you know, you're on the train. You get to the town for the very first time. And in the original Animal Crossing, you were just another villager. So you come in, and Tom Nook, you know, shows you around all these great houses. And he asks you which one you want to choose. And, you know, you pick a house. The game actually has you go into your pocket and give him 100 bells or 1,000 bells. And that's all you have to give him. And Tom Nook literally laughs in your face and says, 1,000 bells? You can't buy a house with 1,000 bells. That's ridiculous. You won't have a place to live. You won't have anywhere to go. You can't buy a house with that money. And then he decides, you know what, you could come work for me and I'll help you pay it off. But he only pays you about like $300. And then he says, all right, I'm done. And I don't have anything for you, so you got to pay off the rest.
If I remember right, that's kind of the tutorial of the game where he's like, oh, you know, I want you to catch some fish. I need you to catch bugs. And he kind of like goes through, oh, here's how you do all these different unique things throughout the game.
Yes, and that's always been a part of the series. And it was even pretty similar to Wild World, if anyone recalls. But something about the GameCube version, like, it was a lot longer. And he was just, like, not just the only one giving you trouble, because you're kind of used to that from Tom Nook in the older installments, but the villagers, like, upon meeting me were really rude. Like, one villager, you know, I went inside his house to say hi, because that's something you do in Animal Crossing, and instead of being greeted with, like, a very warm welcome, he goes, what the heck are you doing in my house? Get out of my house. You're not allowed to be in here, and, like, pretty much kicks you out.
In fairness, if you were just to walk into a complete random stranger's house just to say hi, you'd probably get the same reaction in real life.
Yeah, that's true. And I even had a villager tell me, like, I went to say hi, and she was like, who are you? I don't care about you. Like, what are you doing here? And then, like, she was really harsh, and then she took it back and was like, oh, you just wanted a friend? I'm sorry. But they have, like, these overreactions at first when you meet them. Like, who are you? You're a total stranger. I don't want anything to do with you. And I guess in all fairness, you are this human in this all-animal town. I guess you are a little bit of a stranger, a little bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, a stranger in a strange land.
But still, it's been very different. I mean, a lot of it is sending off your things. You have to send off your fossils because the owl in the museum he does not examine fossils in the GameCube version. So you have to send them off to the faraway museum. You have to send off lots of letters. Those components aren't as important in the newer games, but they were really important to GameCube version.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when they first came out with that improvement in the later games, we were all like, yes, finally, they streamlined the fossil system where you didn't, because you have to mail the fossils in, you have to attach them to the letter, and then you have to wait a couple days to get the fossil back. And by the time you get it back, they'll be like, oh, this is a fossil that you found like millions of times before. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, and that's pretty frustrating. I mean, I was sort of surprised because, I never knew a world where you couldn't just give your fossil to Blathers. So that was kind of fascinating. But I am enjoying some of the little hidden gems. I'm enjoying things like the fountain. There is no fountain in the newer games, but in this older version of Animal Crossing, you could walk right up and the fountain will either let you sort of redeem if you didn't return a lost item to a villager, you sort of ask for forgiveness, or the fountain will point out a spot in the map where you could dig up bells. And I mean, that stuff is just kind of unique and different, and it made the game feel a little bit more full because it was a console experience. And I don't know, I feel like still City Folk doesn't really hold a candle to it.
No, honestly, I feel like the original Animal Crossing is, even to this day, even with all the improvements that have been made to the series over the years and the different installments, I still think it's one of the best entries in the Animal Crossing franchise. New Leaf, to me, is the best game, period, but the original Animal Crossing for the GameCube is still a really good game that still holds up, I think.
It is. And I mean, just in that breath, like, I know we have all these new consoles now, and it's always fun to play with your Switch or your PS4, but there's still a lot of great games on older systems, and if you ever wanted to go back and play one, if you have the ability to do it, I would say go for it. Like, there's nothing wrong with buying an older game and playing it, especially when some of these older games are hidden gems. They're charming still, they're fun to play, they're different experiences. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. Like, I feel pretty fulfilled.
That's good. Yeah, one of my favorite stories is Justin's mother, your Aunt Penny. She used to play the original Animal Crossing on the GameCube so much that she would actually make herself late for work because she would play the game so much when she first woke up. And she was so good at the game, too, that she racked up, like, I don't even know how many bells, but like hundreds of thousands of bells. And she would actually leave the money, because you can have multiple people inhabit the same village in the original Animal Crossing. And she would leave money bags in front of Nick and Justin's houses as a gift for them to help them out. And they refused to take that money, like, out of spite.
Oh, what a good mom Aunt Penny is.
She really is. Her kids don't appreciate her enough.
Ooh, shots fired.
No, but yeah, the original Animal Crossing is a fantastic game, and I'm really glad you got the chance to discover it for yourself.
Yeah, I'm super excited to keep playing it. I want to earn some of the things like the gold statue of myself. That's going to be so much fun.
I think your Aunt Penny had like 5 gold statues or something like that.
Are you serious?
No, I think you can get just the one, but she played the game well enough, she could have gotten 5 gold statues.
Yeah, I don't put that past her. Oh my gosh.
Alright, so what else are you playing?
So, recently, Lewis and I, as a combined effort, finally beat Ori.
Oh, nice. Ori and the Blind Forest, right?
That's correct. Especially since Will-o'-the-Wisps is coming out soon.
That's right, it is coming out soon. So, what did you think?
Okay, let me just start with saying Ori is a gorgeous game. It was masterfully made. A fantastic, fantastic platformer. That being said, this game is a beast. Chris, I don't know if you recall, but partway through playing it, I actually texted you and asked how did you beat this game? And found out that you had not beaten it. And then it dawned on me, this game was massive.
It is a very big game, and it is a very challenging game.
So challenging. Shout out to Lewis, who really helped me through the second half of the game. I would say I made a pretty decent amount of progress by myself, but he was really great at it. He just picked up on some of the controls so much better than I did, and when I would get frustrated, I would just pass the controller his way, and he'd work his way through it. So thank you, Lewis, because this game was really hard, especially for me, who kind of struggles with platformers.
Yeah, and I mean, even for someone more experienced in that type of genre of game, because Ori and the Blind Forest, it's a classic Metroidvania style game where, I don't like the term, but it's where you have to explore and do platforming, and you have to retrace your steps to different areas. It's a very, very challenging game. Like, you're going to be banging your head against the walls a lot of times trying to get through it, but it's still a lot of fun, and like you said, it is a beautiful game.
Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, the story is very minimal. It kind of runs in the background, and it's funny, you'll be exploring the stages for so long, like just going through the areas, and all of a sudden you would hear this big booming voice like narrating more of the story as you were going along. And that to me was kind of entertaining because it was this very serious story about nature. Amidst like Lewis and I trying to work our way through these areas and like killing ourselves over and over. And then finally you would hear this big booming voice that was like, the forest always knew that the darkness was coming, or, whatever blah, blah, blah was happening next. That was a terrible example, but yeah, I really think that it was different. It's so nice to see something as unique as Ori, especially come onto consoles like the Xbox. As you guys know, my struggle for finding Xbox games is sometimes a little difficult. And this is just a really solid game and a really solid platformer. And yeah, there was someone who speedrun it in 13 minutes. And I'm deeply offended that they were able to glitch out the game in 13 minutes when it took us a little over 60 hours.
Yeah, those speedrunners really are impressive. Like, the way they can blaze through some of those games in times that you just can't even imagine. Now, like you said, though, that was a glitch speedrun, so they take advantage of a lot of bugs that are present in some of the games to get through them. I know that doesn't really excite a lot of people out there, but there are 100% speedruns of the game, 100% glitchless speedruns where they don't use any glitches. They try to get every item in the game. Those types of speedruns are probably worth watching as well, but honestly, any speedrun can be really entertaining in its own right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wasn't really so much into watching speedruns until Games Done Quick. That's what it's called, right?
Yes, there are 2 events each year. There's Summer Games Done Quick and Awesome Games Done Quick, which is done during the winter. In fact, Awesome Games Done Quick is usually run during my birthday in January.
Aw, happy birthday.
Well, I mean, it's months away, but thank you.
It's a good birthday gift. Yeah, Games Done Quick is awesome. Just watching these people complete the game with such skill.
Right. So, getting back to Ori a little bit, so I guess now that you and Los have completed the game, what was your favorite part?
I have to say, well, I have 2 favorite parts. First favorite part isn't so much a spoiler, so I'll give that away. Just that opening sequence where you're seeing like the forest at its like most happy state. And then you see it kind of fade into the darkness, and you see Ori's mother die. It's very, very emotional. And I just thought that was beautiful. And the way that the art was done was stunning. And it gave you very much a good motivation to save the forest. So I really enjoyed that. And the other thing I enjoyed was a secondary character you meet later on in the game. I don't want to give too much away about what he did. But he's this great mysterious character you see throughout your time platforming, and eventually you sort of discover where he came from, and I thought that scene was really, really touching. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of great moments with the characters, despite the fact that they don't talk. You really only get the narration, and you just feel a lot looking at those cutscenes. So well done to the creators of Ori. I mean, really beautiful game.
All right. So what else you got?
So the last game I've been playing, I kind of put down because, well, actually, you know what? I'm just going to hit on this one briefly because there's another game I've been playing that's better. I was playing Mario Tennis Aces, and I had to put it down because I got so frustrated with it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but essentially my Switch is broken. We called Nintendo, and they discovered that I have a very rare problem where my Joy-Cons don't work in handheld mode, and Mario Tennis Aces is terrible with it. Also, on top of being just that not good of a game, I personally think. And I was getting so frustrated with it that I had to put it down. So partly both those problems were bad. But that being said, I still wanted to play a Switch game, so I went and bought myself Owlboy.
Oh, very nice. I played Owlboy once upon a time, but yeah, I never actually beat it. So what inspired you to pick up Owlboy?
Well, actually, when I was reading this magazine, A Profound Waste of Time, they had an article from the creator of Owlboy, and I liked it so much just from the sound of it that I decided I would go and pick it up.
Yep, that's called foreshadowing, folks. Classic storytelling technique.
It sure is.
So yeah, Owlboy is interesting because famously it came out a couple years ago, but it went through a 10-year development cycle, which is really, I mean, that's a lot, especially for an indie game. It went through a really rough development cycle before finally being released.
It did. And it's kind of been well known and notorious for that really long development cycle. A lot of people have been fascinated by the process in which it took to make the game, since it took so long. But I mean, as to be expected, because they spent so long in this game, when it did come out, it was practically perfect. It got a lot of great reviews.
Yes, it did. I remember picking it up very shortly after its development because I read a lot of articles that had come out talking about the game's development cycle and the issues it was having. There was a lot of personal strife among the developers and how the game was affecting their own lives. And it really fascinated me, and I really wanted to support it. And it was a really phenomenal game. So tell us a little bit more about the actual game itself.
So Owlboy is about a little owl named Otis. He's a mute, and they kind of play on the trope that, you know, they do in Zelda, where Link doesn't talk. But instead, they acknowledge the fact that Otis is a mute and that he doesn't talk, and it's a really big part of his character. He has this jerk of a professor whom I hate. And this owl professor is really sort of one of the best antagonists I've seen in a long time. He really puts Otis down and makes him feel bad. He calls him worthless. He sort of comments on the way that Otis flies and Otis does everything and tells him that he's not good enough constantly. And I can really strongly relate to that because, believe it or not, I had a jerk professor back in the day. So I definitely hate Otis's professor.
Yeah, I remember this asshole. Honestly, I remember when the game first came out, a lot of people were actually making fun of the professor because he does not just oh, Otis, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. He just takes a giant dump on Otis every second he gets. Like, this guy is literally like, Otis, the level of disappointment I have in you is incalculable. Is there anything in your wildest imagination that you can even pretend to do right? Is there something in your life that you're not completely worthless at doing? Just why do you even bother trying, Otis? I'm just extremely disappointed in you and the very idea of you.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Like, that is verbatim what he's like. No exaggeration. So yeah, the story right from the start really hooks you because you really have a very sympathetic protagonist. And you know, they even just with the animation, wouldn't you say, Chris? It's just beautiful. It's all pixel. And they even animate Otis's shoulders like moving up and down when he's crying. Like, there's a lot of emotion in the artwork. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this game is it's really beautiful. It's pixel based, but it's very, very detailed. The environments are beautiful. The character designs are really varied and unique. Like, it's a society of owls, quote unquote, but they all kind of just look like regular people who wear capes and kind of have goggles. But I mean, they're all described as owls.
Yes, that's right. It's actually their capes that give them the ability to fly.
Right. And so that's the beginning is all just trying to teach Otis how to fly, how to be a good owl. Unfortunately, he's not very good at it, and his professor is extremely harsh on him over it. It's just honestly like really, really depressing.
It is at first, but then the mood definitely lifts a little bit when you meet Getty, Otis's best friend. And Getty's so cute. Like, the characters really do remind me of classic Zelda characters. And Getty just has like this feeling to him I can't describe that feels like he's right out of a Legend of Zelda game. He's so supportive and sweet to Otis. They're best friends. And you actually, the mechanic of the game that's really unique is as Otis you could fly, but you pick up your partners and they're the ones who attack. So as you're flying with your partner, Getty could shoot at enemies. Later on, you meet someone who's a pirate, and you could use him to fire with like a flamethrower. And the whole time, as Otis, you're maneuvering and flying around the stages, and you're shooting other opponents. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really cool and clever, and especially later in the game, you find more allies who will join Otis on his journey, and you can actually cycle between these characters, and they offer a lot of secondary moves based on each character's skill set, and they can allow Otis to do all sorts of different things.
Yes, very well said. Yeah, the story is really great. The artwork's really great. I'm so happy I went and picked this up because, you know, obviously I'd heard about the game. I even listened to you talk about it on the podcast. But reading about the development and what went into the game and the thought process behind it, I mean, this game is a really safe bet for any type of player who wants to pick up a game. It's very forgiving. So I'm really enjoying it so far.
All right, perfect. So is there anything more you've got?
No, that's about it. What are you playing, Chris?
All right, so this week was a bit of a lighter week for me. I focused pretty much all of my attention on Mega Man X. And, man, I was just having the roughest time trying to play this game. Like, if you remember last week, I first picked the game up as part of the Legacy X collection on the Switch. And it was my first time ever playing any of the Mega Man X games. So I'm playing Mega Man X for the first time. It's considered an all-time classic. And I beat Chill Penguin, and then I was trying to beat Spark Mandrill, who I'm following I was trying to follow a walkthrough of the game that was like, oh, you know, here are the stages you need to go through, because I have no idea. I don't have time to sit there and try to figure out which boss to go next. And so it was this walkthrough I was looking at was like, hey, go to Spark Mandrill stage. So I'm like, okay. So I'm going there, and all the floors are electrified, and there's these There are the robots all over the place. They're shooting you with such precision. I swear. Like, how many Mega Man games have you ever played, Alaina?
Oh dear, you're asking the wrong girl. I've played 0, but in that breath, I've watched my brother Lewis play many Mega Man games. He's kind of the Mega Man in our family.
Right. Every family has a Mega Man in the family. So it works out that Lewis would be the Mega Man in your family, but I am certainly not the Mega Man in my family. These enemies in Mega Man, I don't know if Capcom's developers have ever worked for the military, have ever considered working for the military in the future, because the level of precision that the enemies will shoot you, not even just like, oh, there he is, let's shoot him, but where you're going to go. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen an enemy try to, like, they aim to try to shoot me, and I'm like, oh, I'll just jump out of the way. So I'll jump, but just before I jump, the enemy will fire upwards, and I will jump right into where the bullet was going to go from where I jumped. I'll, like, try to move, and they'll, like, target me wherever I am. Like, the level of precision that these enemies hit is so precise and just so on target. Like, it both impresses me and infuriates me every time, because I'm like, God damn it, just let me dodge. I don't want to get hit by these freaking enemy bullets.
Yeah, Mega Man games are pretty hard. They really do take a certain amount of skill, and I think if you're someone like Lewis who has been playing them for a long time, like, he kind of knows the feeling of a Mega Man game. He's able to feel his way around the levels. But I could guarantee you, someone like me going into it, like, I would have just as much of a struggle as you. So precise and so infuriating when you can't fight through some of those battles, fight through some of the stages.
Yeah, so I was going through Spark Mandrill's stage, and it's got all electrified floors, and the first part is kind of maze-like, so I managed to make my way through that, and I'm like, okay, I took some damage from the floor because it shoots out these little electric balls, and you have to jump over them periodically. Meanwhile, there's robot enemies all over the place, and they're still shooting at you as you're jumping, so it took a lot of damage that way. Then I made my way through the level, and there was this mini-boss, which is like this round octopusy type thing, and it's like in a water ball, and it floats around the room, and it shoots out these little sticky pods that force you to stick to the floor, and then it will, like, hover over you and shoot electricity down at you, and it'll try to wipe you out. And according to the walkthrough I was reading, it was like, oh, this boss can be pretty easy for some, pretty hard for others. Just dodge out of the way. You use your dash move to dodge out of the way of these electric bolts and fire these charged shots at him. And yeah, you should be able to bring him down piece of cake. No word of lie, I must have fought this son of a bitch 20 times. I could not, Alaina. It was impossible. Absolutely impossible. No, I do not believe that anybody has ever beaten that boss without using the special weapon that you can use to, like, take him out. I refuse to believe it. I can't believe it. If I watch it with my own eyes, I will assume the video is faked. There's no way it's actually happened before. This son of a bitch will stick you to the floor with his goddamn goop, and then he will shoot the electricity bolts, and sure, you can dodge out of the way and all that. Then he starts bouncing out of the room, and that military precision that I was talking about earlier, he just knows, oh, that's where he's going to dash, well, that's where I'm going to bounce, so he bounces right there, and when he hits you, he, like, takes away, like, half your health in one hit. And so he was just bouncing into me and, like, one hit KOing me, and let me tell you, picking up this game on the Switch was almost a mistake, just because every time I play a hard game like this, and I noticed this a lot when I was playing Celeste, the urge to snap the system over your knee when you get mad is almost overwhelming. Like, it would feel so good to snap the system over your knee when you get mad, but you have to resist that urge. You can't give in.
Yeah, Lewis actually has the game for the Switch too, and he was struggling because, believe it or not, like, the Switch doesn't have a D-pad, so it's really difficult to pull off some of the moves with the exact type of precision you would with a normal controller. So he went out and he got a Pro controller just for the game.
Yeah, it can be a little tough to control. I'm actually, because I'm a madman, I'm controlling it with the analog stick. I know a lot of purists out there are clutching their pearls right now going, but it controls better for me with the analog stick. I can't help it. Sorry. That's just the way it is.
Oh dear, they're all clutching their pearls, Chris. What have you done?
Sorry, everyone out there is like fanning themselves with old manuals saying, Lord, I've got the vapors.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know that much about Mega Man. I know from what I've seen, but I could believe you when you say it's this hard. It is a pretty difficult game.
Yeah, so I was doing research because I'm like, there's gotta be a way. Like, I have to get through this game somehow. And then I saw other walkthroughs. So like, yeah, after beating Chill Penguin in the first stage, you want to go to Storm Eagle's stage. And I was like, Storm Eagle? That's not what that one walkthrough is saying. So I go to Storm Eagle's stage. I'm like, let's see how this is. And this giant eagle shows up, and he's got these big wings, and he looks ferocious, and he strikes this pose, and I'm just like, oh god, this guy's gonna be a pain in the ass, I can tell. And I go through a stage, and it was a little tough because he's a wind-based robot master, right? So I'm going through a stage, it's up in the air, there's some wind that I have to contend with, but I make it up to Storm Eagle's lair, which is like this giant plane, sort of, and it like flies up into the air, and then Storm Eagle descends down to attack me. Laney, this guy was a joke. This guy was a pushover. I took him out my first try. Me, the guy who's so bad at Mega Man that, like, I have to follow a walkthrough just to know where the hell I'm going and what to do. This guy was a frickin' joke. A pushover. I pantsed him, pulled his underwear up over his head, and kicked him off the edge of the plane. He was nothing. Nothing. I got his powers with my eyes closed. This guy was a joke. Friggin' Storm Eagle can't even stand up and, like, offer me a challenge. I was like, man, what a little bee.
I could just picture him like, squawk, I'm your worst nightmare. And then you just come over and you pull the pants over his head.
I got him I'm dunking his head in the school toilet, and I'm like flushing it.
You're such a schoolyard bully.
I mean, I was. Like, that's the thing. None of his attacks, here's the trick about Storm Eagle. None of his attacks, like, actually hurt. And they're so easy to dodge out of the way. Like, his main weapon, like, fires a gust of air at you, which his whole deal is he wants to push you off the edge so he can kill you. But as long as you just keep dashing against that, you can avoid that easily. And then it's just a matter of just shooting him over again. He flies into the air and he like bats his wings, which again tries to push you off the edge, but you just have to keep jumping and dashing. And yeah, he was nothing. He was a joke. Storm Eagle is a little nobody. Yeah, a coward.
You're really calling him out. Well, I mean, this was a good thing because at least you were just in a bad area. It's not like you were terrible at Mega Man.
Well, I still am, but at least it felt nice for once to go into a stage and just absolutely obliterate a Mega Man opponent. I've never taken on a boss and just killed him outright in one shot before, like first try. Like, that's never happened to me before. They've usually destroyed me at least once before I had a chance to take him out. So it was actually really great because after I beat Storm Eagle, I got his wind powers, which that's what you need to use to beat that friggin' round octopus boss in the in Spark Mandrel's stage. So I went back there, and guess what? Sky Eagle? No. Yeah, Storm Eagle. Once I beat his stage, it deactivated the electricity in Spark Mandrel's stage. So all the floors that were electrified before, they weren't electrified anymore. So I could just walk. I didn't have to worry about that. So I took out all the enemies super easy there. And the octopus boss who shoots the electricity down at me, like, he didn't shoot the electricity anymore because he didn't have any more power source, I guess, to shoot it. So all I had to worry about was him sticking me to the floor and bouncing into me. And I just kept hitting him with Storm Eagle's power over and over again. And yeah, he still brought me down to like 1 hit point of health left, but I managed to kill him just before he killed me. And then Spark Mandrel, I mean, he was super easy because you just need Shill Penguin's ice power to kill him, and you just freeze him over and over again, and then he's boop, done.
Yeah, it sounds like that walkthrough you had really wasn't very accurate. I'm glad that you ended up going to Storm Eagle's stage instead, because it sounds like that's the order you sort of had to approach things in anyway. Even though Mega Man doesn't really have a strict order, from what I know, right?
No, it's more open, more open-ended. Typical Mega Man experience is like you go through, you find the easiest boss and you take his power, then you try to find the boss that power is strong against, and you repeat that process until you take down all of the robot masters. And in the old days, like in the old NES days and the early SNES days, the way you did that was communication with other players. Like, you would find out, okay, which boss do I need to take out first? And then your friends would be like, oh, you need to fight this boss. And then from there, you use his powers to take on that boss. And you kind of like share that information, in that way. Nowadays, with the prevalence of like walkthroughs and things on YouTube where you can see like the different ways to go and the best way to tackle things, you can still attack the bosses in any order, but there is a preferred path where things can get easier. But you don't strictly have to attack the bosses in any order.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Well, all in all, seems like you've had a pretty productive week.
Yeah, it was somewhat productive. I wish I had more time to get to some of the other games that I've kind of put on the back burner, but Mega Man X is kind of it's kind of become my obsession lately because, yeah, I'm having trouble with it, but it's still a lot of fun. I'm still really enjoying it.
That's good. It really does seem like you are. And plus, I mean, that's a classic game you can now put under your belt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that was really it for me this week, and that was it for you. Ordinarily, this is the part where I would say, and now we go into the Indie Arcade, and then we would have the Indie Arcade theme song go on, but really don't have anything for the Indie Arcade this week. I talked well enough about Mars Troopers last week. I'm not going to rehash that all over again. God help me. But if you remember last week, I gave Justin the game Chicken Assassin Reloaded to play. Justin is not here to talk about Chicken Assassin Reloaded. So, yeah, unfortunately, we don't really have a lot for the Indie Arcade segment this week.
Yeah, and despite wearing his shoes and his afro, I can't really speak on Justin's behalf, so we're going to have to wait for him to come back and fill in for the real thing.
Right, so in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to see if Alaina is willing to wear this blindfold and ball gag for me. But in the meantime, why don't you enjoy the dulcet tones of our good buddy Nick. Welcome back, everybody, to Press A Repeatedly. Christopher Gold here with Alaina Tomasello. Yeah, the ball gag thing didn't work out for anyone who was curious.
Yeah, let's never speak about that again.
Right. So, for our big topic this week, we are going to be discussing the new gaming magazine, A Profound Waste of Time.
Yes, and I just purchased this magazine. Started out as a Kickstarter. And Chris, why don't you tell us a description?
Okay, so I'm actually on their website right now. It's APWOT, A Profound Waste of Time, APWOT.com. And it describes itself, quote, A Profound Waste of Time is a new independent magazine that celebrates games as an art form. Each issue plays host to a rich variety of voices from inside and outside the video game industry, interwoven with stunning imagery from leading illustrators and artists. Editorially discerning and beautifully designed, the magazine serves to celebrate gaming culture and discussion. Following our successful Kickstarter campaign, we can now offer orders of the magazine. While we've sold out of the special edition, we're currently looking into the possibility of a reprint, so please sign up to our newsletter for potential announcements.
And there you have it. Profound Waste of Time is an independent magazine that really specializes in art as well. It's a little bit more of an elevated experience than your typical gaming magazine. You think about something like Game Informer, this is a little bit more of a special experience because it's not so much reviewing games, it's really talking about the lives of people who make games. It's articles about different games that people just simply want to talk about. They're not necessarily all recent. In fact, there was a big article in this issue about a Yoshi story. And there's, really intersplicing of some beautiful, not just typography, but photographic work, artwork. You name it, it's really beautiful, full color, matte pages. The really nice, thick kind that, feel good underneath your hands. So that being said, it's a little pricey. It's $32, but it's 100 pages of some really unique collections of stories and some really big people writing and talking about games.
Right. I'm actually looking at their website right now, and it describes some of the specs of, let's see, it's got, it actually says it's over 180 pages worth of content in here. Let's see, over 30 writers and illustrators, litho print, and it's got some sample pages of a lot of their articles. And Alaina, you mentioned that Yoshi Story article. The print spread that they've got for that article, it's actually really cool. It's a lot of fruit. Like they've got watermelons and cantaloupes and cherries and bananas and apples, and they're all arranged together, so it kind of looks like Yoshi lying down on his back and taking a nap. Like, it's actually really clever how it's all laid out. And this is a photograph, so it's all, laid out meticulously. It's beautifully lit. And what's really cool is right in the middle of it, it has what looks like a Yoshi egg.
Yeah, the magazine is super creative. As an artist, it is very, very pleasing to look at these pages. Starting with the cover, which is absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful illustration of Shovel Knight. And actually, upon initial release, they did have a glow-in-the-dark version of this. Unfortunately, it's sold out, but even the original edition is gorgeous. Like, I was staring at it in person. And the illustration is just breathtaking. It's Shovel Knight looking off in the distance at... I'm guessing that's the final boss castle. What would you say that is, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's the last castle. That's where Shovel Knight needs to get to so he can avenge his beloved Shield Knight. Yeah,
so just even if you're someone who just really appreciates artwork, this magazine is a piece that you could keep in your collection, and you could go back and you could just look at the video game artwork that people have made. It's really creative. I think that, it goes a little bit deeper than just being like a regular magazine. It's almost like a keepsake.
Yeah, it's it's a very beefy magazine. It's over 180 pages, like we talked about, but it's also got like a lot of really interesting articles in there. Like there's an article by Life is Strange's Ashley Birch, who voiced Chloe in the original game, and she talks about her time recording as Chloe and how that helped her out during a very tough time for her personally and professionally.
Yeah, that's actually, believe it or not, she's the one who helped me discover the magazine, because she tweeted out that she made the article for it. And she had like a picture of it, and I thought it just looked so gorgeous in her photograph. And the article is so beautifully written. I was just inspired to get a hold of that. So yeah, she's just one of the many people in the magazine that are great. But I have to say, just reading it, there's been quite a few articles I've read so far that I was surprised. I really enjoyed every one, and they've all had a very different and unique perspective.
Yeah, there's like, just looking at some of these cutouts, it talks about there's articles about the Sonic Technical Institute. There's an in-depth interview with Yacht Club Games. There is an article that breaks down the game Downwell, which we had talked about before on the podcast. There's just all sorts of content in here, and all of these illustrations that they've got lined up here. Like, here's one that breaks down Owlboy. Like, these are just really intricate and beautiful. Like, honestly, all of these pieces could be like, they almost feel like they could be hung in a museum. Like, that's how good they are.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. I would put any of these pieces on my wall. Yeah, so anyway, would we like to talk a little bit about the articles? Would you like to hear a little about them?
Yeah, absolutely. You've spent some time reading a lot of these articles, so yeah, give us kind of like a 50,000-foot overview on how well written they are, what they're about, anything that you can really tell us.
Well, first of all, I would go out and say that these are all very well written. Each person seems to have their own unique voice, which is always kind of nice to see. Sometimes you read like a magazine and everyone kind of is streamlined to sound the same, but each of these people writing really do have different perspectives and different writing styles. So it almost feels like opening up a brand new book every time you read a different article, which is kind of exciting. And you really don't know what's coming next because each topic is very unique. They even talk about at the start of the story, the start of the magazine, that the writers all just sort of chose topics that they wanted to talk about. So they could be just about anything in gaming. So that being said, I really enjoyed, one article was strictly about games that help you relax. It's very fascinating. The author talked about how they went through a severe period of depression and how they used some mobile app games to get them through it. And they had one game that just helped them grow succulents. And they were talking about how gaming has started to sort of transition into not just being like an entertainment platform, but something that's good for self-help.
Yeah, and that's really important. Like, there's a lot of different ways that video games can affect our daily lives and our personal routine, and to highlight games as a way to relax and kind of ease your mind a little bit. I know a friend of the show, Nick, he is very much into relaxation and meditation and making sure that your mind is clear and that you're relaxed and healthy mentally. I know a lot of Nick's favorite games are ones where he can kind of go at his own pace and just kind of chill out and mellow out. I think an article like that would really be up Nick's alley. That was something that would really interest him.
Right. And when's the last time you've actually heard someone write about something like that? I think that that's incredibly unique to this magazine. Some of these topics are kind of unheard of. You know, we're so used to being bombarded with the latest and greatest in games, the newest technology, the best, immersion experiences that you could find out there on the market. And you don't really have anyone talking about the little guys.
No, and it's nice to have a light kind of shed on that particular facet because there's just so many different ways that video games can affect us. So to have that spotlight put on these different areas is really nice and it's refreshing.
Yeah, and in the same breath, for the serious gamer, there's also plenty here. I mean, not to say that you're not a serious gamer if you don't play the mobile games, but, for the, I suppose, console-heavy gamer, for the person who really wants to know more about game development or wants to know about, these different companies. I mean, the huge article on Yacht Club Games is awesome. I really enjoyed the one about Owlboy because it talked all about how the developer works with getting really good progression in his games and how Owlboy was really a focus on progression.
Yeah, it's that's what's really cool about this magazine is it covers such a wide variety of topics. Now, my question for you is this, from what we were looking at, is this magazine seems to be a print-only magazine, which is very unique in today's day and age where you can find pretty much everything on the internet. How well do you think that this magazine can do as print-only in an age where everyone seems to be getting all of their information online?
Well, I think it has all the right things going for it. So far, it's sold out of at least all of its special editions. It did really well and met its goal for its Kickstarter. So I think it does have a pretty good audience who wants this type of magazine. I will say that the magazine is a luxurious experience. If you're someone who enjoys the smell of a book, the touch and feeling of a book, turning the pages, looking at the colors of things in person, this is for you. This is the experience that you want. But if you're someone who doesn't really care about those things, maybe you're not going to be as interested. I mean, obviously, it's not as accessible as logging on to IGN or, any of these other websites that have these online articles. But I will say that it is kind of enticing because the content inside it is unique. It's not the same as what you're getting everywhere else. So they do have that going for it.
Which is nice.
I agree.
So yeah, I agree with that. It's really nice to actually hold something physical in your hands and be able to read the just kind of lean back in a chair and read something and not have to stare at a screen all day, because it can get old after a while. And it's nice too just to have something where the words on the page right in front of you, I mean, they are what they are. Like, there's no sense of like, oh, you know that you can't just like copy and paste these articles to somewhere else. People won't be able to Photoshop things to make them say what they didn't say. And also you're helping support a really, really great community of writers and illustrators who are just as passionate as we are about video games.
Yeah, that's the perspective I have too. I mean, just personally speaking, getting this magazine, which is sort of like a big Bible, and sitting down with it, it was such a delight to have that come through the mail. I've just been so excited about learning more about video games, learning more about what it takes to make them, learning about all the intricacies in the process, just really everything I could get about video games. And the thing is, these articles are kind of partly educational, partly entertaining. I don't know. I think that hits a certain spot for me. I don't know what to say other than I think that when you get a book, or especially in this case, this magazine, and you open it up, you could see the whole page spread and you could see everything there right in front of you, and scrolling down a website just isn't the same.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience. I know, like, I haven't really heard too much about this magazine before you brought it up. Honestly, it sounds really great and really fascinating to me. Right now, they only have the one issue out. As of this recording, they just released the first issue, I think, last month. I'm not sure what the schedule is on releasing new magazines. I don't know if they have an option where you can actually subscribe to this magazine as you can like with a traditional magazine, or if you have to buy each issue separately. So as of right now, you can. It's let me see. I think it's 25 British pounds because it's based in the United Kingdom. So it's £20 for each issue, but depending on where you are, to ship it, it costs a little extra. Like it's £3 to ship it to the UK, £4 to the rest of Europe, and £5 to ship it to the rest of the world. So to get it over here costs, according to the website, 25 British pounds, which is equivalent to about $32 US. So it's a little bit pricey, but honestly, for the quality and the quantity of work that you're getting, honestly, it seems worth it to me. And again, you're helping support a great community of artists, so I think it would be really worth it. I think it's worth the money that you would spend.
Right, and I mean, we're just speaking as fans of what we've seen so far. I'm speaking as a fan. I'm looking at these magazines that they're coming out with and the plans that they have, and I just think that this could be such a good thing for the gaming community. We need more people who could talk more about their individual gaming experiences. We need people who can be part of the industry talking about their experience. I mean, how many times do you really get to have a genuine article written by someone who's created a game? Sure, we have interviews, but those are different. I mean, this is someone sitting down and talking about what they think about games, and they're in it. I just think that that's so valuable for all of us who are playing games and who are fans of games, to just understand this world a little bit better, because so much happens behind the scenes that you wouldn't even dare to dream about. These games are like miracles every time that they're made, especially in the time period that all these creators are given. And then in that breath, illustrators, same thing. I mean, as an artist, I could tell you how much work goes into an illustration. To see these two worlds come together is just a really magical thing.
Yep, always. Yeah, I don't know really where else we can go from there, except check out the magazine, apwot.com, and give a look. And yeah, if you're interested, consider getting the issue.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any questions for me, Chris, while we have a little bit of time?
Not too many. I guess, like, how does the actual magazine feel? Like, how do the pages feel? Does it kind of have, like, a glossy finish to it? Does it feel like the material is cheap at all? Like, is it on flimsy pages? How does it actually feel holding it in your hands?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's like thick, matte, almost cardstock. Very expensive paper. It's like a satin matte finish.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is high quality stuff then.
Oh, very high quality. And the color quality is very, very gorgeous. Even in person, it's even better than the pictures. Just to sort of give you an indication, like, the light colors are really just bright and happy. The dark colors, like the Yoshi spread, has like a really dark black background. It's like a beautiful black matte in person.
Wow, okay, that's really good to know.
Yeah, I definitely would say that it was worth my $32. This was a piece that you could keep on your coffee table. You could read at night before bed. You could have it as a conversation piece.
All right, so you can use it to prop up the unlevel table that you've got in the kitchen. Just kind of stick it under one of the legs and help prop it up a little bit.
No, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, just kind of use it to you stand on it to reach high places.
No, it's a really good magazine. Don't do that. Like, I swear, because this has matte pages, right? Like, obviously, I don't want to fold them. When I read this thing, I just gently, gently prop it open. And then I keep it in a spot in my room where I know nothing will touch it because it's so precious to me. Like, if it got bent, I would just be so distraught.
Yeah, especially if you spent $32 on the thing. Yeah, I would want to take especially good care of this magazine.
For sure.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for this week. Alaina, thank you so much for filling in for Justin this week. Had a really good time.
Oh, me too. Thank you guys for always having me.
Yeah, of course. Just remember to return the legs and the wig when you're all done with them, because I want to keep those.
All right. I'll just return them over here for you and, not think too much about what you do in your spare time.
I really appreciate that. That's all for this week. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes Tuesdays on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show, or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you. You can follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Press A Repeatedly. I'm at cgold113, and Alaina is at Laney Lynn T. That's LANEYLYNNT. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's parpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to check us out on pressarepeatedly.com. We have a new article up this week where Nick details how we can schedule game time like a streamer to help us better organize our gaming time. So check that out and let us know what you think. And that's all for this week. Chris and Alaina signing off. And remember to flap your wings to get away from your abusive owlish professor. Press A repeatedly. Make sure to leave the tassels and the ball gag behind too.
All right.